Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Kate Snow, anchor NBC News Daily and senior national correspondent NBC News. And joining her is Patrick J. Kennedy, co-founder, the Kennedy Forum.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hi.
Hey, Kate.
How are you?
Great.
We spend so much time talking about mental health. And I think today, for our quick conversation, I want to frame it around brain health, because I know that's something you're intentional about now, too. Yeah. Because brain health is so much more than a diagnosis, right? Can I start by asking, I think everyone in this room probably knows your story at least a little bit. I mean, they know you're the son of Ted Kennedy, Senator. You are the nephew of President John F. Kennedy. But I don't know if everybody knows your personal story and how you served for 16 years in Congress and then couldn't, right, and left. So I'm wondering if you want to touch on a little bit of that, and also how does that inform what you do now, present day? When you sit down with CEOs or leaders, are you bringing your personal story to it, and does that in some way open doors?
Well, first, thanks so much, Kate. I mean, you know, Walter talked about how important media is to messaging. And we've never really had the kind of messaging around mental health that clarifies and synthesizes these issues. Kate's an exception. You've been at all of our events. You've been fantastic.
Thank you.
So anyway, I got elected at 21 to the Rhode Island State Legislature. And then I got elected to Congress at 27 as the youngest member of Congress. And then at 32, I was elected to leadership in the Democratic Party. And I want everyone to know that none of it had to do with my last name being Kennedy whatsoever. It was my good looks and personality that got me so far in politics. But I think Kate's alluding to the fact that in my second term in the state legislature, I woke up one day and I was on the cover of the National Enquirer. Patrick Kennedy, drug addict. And the guy that I had been in drug rehab with, whose picture was also on the National Enquirer, because he said, "My time with Patrick Kennedy in rehab." So I represented a little neighborhood in Providence, Rhode Island, that was predominantly Italian-American, highest concentration of Italo-American voters in the country in Rhode Island. And it turned out that was a good thing while I was in a crisis, because I went over to my neighbor's house who had helped me get elected. His name was Frank DiPaolo. And he wouldn't look at me because this National Enquirer was at every checkout counter in my area. And he kept shaking his head. And I knew, I was like so full of shame. And he said, that rat bastard. And I was like, I was so ready for him to blow me up. And he said, "Buddy, you want me to go do something about this?" And I was so touched, because I thought, this guy's ready to fight for me, literally. And I said, no, buddy, I'm already in trouble. I don't need more. But he went around in my next election. He said, "We got to vote for Pat, not the rat." And so I actually won overwhelmingly, because my constituents didn't want to seem like they were throwing me out because this guy had ratted on me. And then I got elected to Congress, and because of that, I got to put my name first on the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act. And the reason I did, I was the youngest member of Congress from the smallest state in the country, and it was in the minority party. Basically, I was the lowest guy on the totem pole. And the way Washington works, as in the rest of the world, you have to have a lot of gray hair before you get to be number one on anything.
Right.
But I got to be number one on mental health by default, because none of my colleagues wanted their names next to a bill whose title included the words mental and addiction because they didn't want anyone asking them, did they have any mental health or addiction issues? And of course, no politician back in the 90s, these days this stuff is passé, right? No one, registers on it. But back then, this was really big stigma. Since I among the people I thank God for is this guy, Rob Remy, who ratted on me. Because of him, I didn't have to worry about keeping this a secret.
Right, it was already exposed.
It was exposed. And so I had the freedom to put my name on these bills. And that changed my life because even though I was still suffering from a chronic illness, I had every day, people like Marquita, who runs American Psychiatric Association, coming in to lobby at me on mental health because now I was the mental health guy, which meant that I was constantly connected to people in recovery. Even though at the time I was struggling myself, I couldn't get away from it. And the one challenge with recovery is disconnection. And it's the thing that further alienates, and by the way, pathologizes every mental illness and addiction, is isolation. And it's the biggest challenge, and frankly, the biggest salvation for those of us in recovery is fellowship. And Walter mentioned we. We admitted we were powerless and that our lives would be, it didn't I. Because to survive these illnesses, we need each other. And the cornerstone of recovery is transparency, meaning I have to tell my sponsor everything about me, all the stuff that I don't want to talk about, so that I'm less alone. And I'm not operating in this world keeping a secret life to myself that I don't share with anybody. This is what our country needs, is the fellowship that I am the beneficiary of because I'm in recovery. So when people in recovery said they are grateful, they're grateful because if they weren't at a life and death moment, they wouldn't have chosen to give their lives over to something bigger than themselves. And of course, today we really have a spiritual crisis. We're all trying to manage our own lives, and we forget if we give up the fight, we win. And for me, I gave up the fight. And I knew intuitively I couldn't keep running for Congress, for re-election, and survive. And so I left Washington. I left my job. I left a staff of 25 who enabled me. I moved to New Jersey. I started going to meetings every day because my then girlfriend insisted that she wouldn't date me if I weren't in recovery. And I never imagined what my life would become. I'm a father today of 5 kids who have never seen me under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And I got to do, again, this advocacy piece, which is just fulfill my life. And
I want to talk about that. I mean, because I think the title of this, of our session is Life After Service, right? You've already served in so many roles. I'm a reporter, so I have to ask, you just mentioned having community around sobriety, around recovery. One of the people that I know you share that with is your cousin, who happens to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr. Just a few weeks ago, you had an event where you went to Washington and you stood next to him, next to the Secretary, different party from yours, and you talked about mental health and you talked about working together. I want you to tell us why you did that. I also wonder whether you got blowback or criticism from any of your fellow Democrats.
Huge blowback. But I gave a 6-figure check to the Democrats before this election. I campaigned around this country to see a different person elected. We lost. We got 3 more years for this administration. 3 of the most consequential years in our mental health movement, because AI is going to transform delivering personalized medicine for people like me so that we can triage who needs what when. And this administration is interested in DOGE. They want to save money. I've got the best solution in the world for them. It's mental health. Because you can't tackle any of these chronic illnesses if mental health is not part of this. And at the end of the day, I want to get to the economics, because the economics are going to dictate we have to spend more money on mental health. And if I can show, thanks to new data and economics, that the forensic auditing of our government, in fact, this is my #1 priority on the Hill today, is getting the GAO and OMB to properly score investments in mental health across the government. We rely on mental health being demonstrated to be a cost benefit just in healthcare. The real savings are in retention of employees, the reduction in absenteeisms, the reduction in criminal justice costs, which, by the way, is the largest provider of mental health in this country, is our criminal justice system. So I am setting up for the Secretary of HHS events with Pam Bondi around an event in Miami-Dade with Judge Steve Leifman, who revolutionized the criminal justice system down there, because all of the people he saw before him in court were all people with mental illness and addiction. And they were proposing in Miami-Dade to build a new jail. And he said, I can do for you more without building that new jail if you give me just a fraction of the money. And you know what? He built supportive housing. He built supportive living services. Guess what? They dramatically reduced the criminal justice population, which has saved Miami-Dade money. So the secretary, frankly, has not been as focused on this. Maha, frankly, does not focus enough on mental health. But I'm trying to use my relationship with him to support his initiative by defining my issue as his issue. And he's introduced me to Dr. Oz, who used to do book events with me, ironically, and Dr. McCary, who, by the way, has agreed to do a warp speed on non-addictive analgesics. I got addicted to OxyContin. Pain is a major public health crisis in this country, and yet so many people still get addicted because of opioids. We have non-addictive opioid interventions, but we don't have the same urgency that we had in getting a vaccination to create new solutions for. This is just an example.
Yeah.
If I weren't in front of these people, I don't think they would be getting as much of this information. Take, for example, last week, Q Ree asked me, can you get your cousin to speak at the National Community Health Center Coalition? I said, absolutely. I called him, you guys said, you got to go to this. My dad wrote the authorizing language for the National Federally Qualified Health Center. And I said, by the way, everything MAHA will run through these community health centers because they're treating the highest risk population of comorbidity in the country. And by the way, at the least cost. And you provide the wraparound services, which is the whole model that Dr. Oz wants to create in terms of the kind of total cost of care. So I said, you ought to go to this and say, this is the one area of healthcare you wouldn't change. And guess what? He went. And he said that. And he was excited to. So
He went because of your call.
Well, because I recommended it would be good for him, and they were all happy. And I would say this, I started a couple of things that, among which is fighting the commercialization of marijuana, and we are now fighting the sports betting, virtual gaming, iGaming, all the stuff that's going to totally create havoc.
Because you're worried about the addictive property.
Addictive properties. I have termed it addiction for profit. So what do we learn from tobacco? The tobacco CEOs were embedding nicotine to get people to smoke cigarettes. What did we learn from Purdue Pharma? They were hooking the whole country on opioids, and they denied that they were addictive. Now, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We are spreading all this addiction around this country at the time when we don't have enough providers to begin with. What are we thinking as a nation? And so, in any event, I go on Fox News because they love having a Democrat say they're against marijuana. It's like they just think it's so great. And so, but I've gone on a couple of times, and every time I leave the Fox studio, I look at my phone, and my texts are all lit up. And they're lit up by all my friends in 12-step recovery. And I think to myself, I didn't know he watched Fox News. Like we're in the rooms of 12-step recovery, and I think they're all Democrats. Like the way, I mean, we're all in recovery. Like, you know, anyway.
Isn't that the thing, though? It's equal opportunity, right? It's like everybody in this room probably knows someone who either has a mental health diagnosis or has a substance use disorder.
My sponsor, before I found out, he used to be the president's attorney. Like, you would have thought I would have known that. I live in Atlantic City, so he did all of his real estate. But I am saying that guy saved my life. And a lot of other Republicans saved my life. And that's the overarching demand.
Are you okay? Does that make you emotional?
I feel so grateful. And of course, I don't know why it is, but I get so easily emotional these days. It's the way that my brain, you know, Nora Volkow, a big hero of mine, the National Institute of Drug Abuse, you know, talks about her left brain, right brain. And I just love it's the chemistry in our brains that affect kind of our feelings and emotions. But it's not just the chemistry, it's our lives. So we have a chance to be intentional about the solutions to our own mental health crisis as a nation. My wife, Amy's in the audience.
Where's Amy?
Somewhere
Somewhere
over there in the
there
back.
There she is.
So, you know, she supports my recovery. She's a public school teacher for 14 years, veteran, and she's always talking about we need to teach our kids a new paradigm of education because you've heard about AI, you know, basically supplementing a lot of content. What we really need now is the ability to manage content and a world of trauma and toxicity like Walter talked about. If we don't have the ability to self-modulate, manage our emotions and thoughts, which I have to do on a daily basis with the help of my fellows in recovery, our nation is not going to be as strong if we don't prepare our young people. And Rich Carmona is a Green Beret. Now, I went to rededicate the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center at Fort Bragg, which trains all the Green Berets, and they invited me because the name on the school is called the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare School. And I got toured around the place by Hugh Shelton and became chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and he said, Congressman, we have more mental health for our Green Berets than any other branch of the service. And I said, I know you read my CV, you know, that I'm Mr. Mental Health, but you don't need to convince me that you got mental. These Green Berets don't need mental health. I mean, they jump out of airplanes, they swim underwater for 5 miles without breathing. They hit the beach, they speak 6 languages. They take out their target and they're reading to their kids by bedtime. I mean, these guys don't need mental health. And he said, Congressman, we look at mental health as a force multiplier. Now, I'm Mr. Mental Health, but I never thought of it as anything other than a disability, honest to God. Mental health is about reaching your potential. And for us
brain health.
Brain health, because the fact of the matter is, if you can't, in a stressful situation, have intrusive thoughts while you're on the front line doing a mission for our military, you're not going to perform your mission effectively, and you're going to jeopardize the lives of the people that you're going in with. And I would like to have the retired Green Berets go around to every Fortune 100 company in this country and tell the story that mental health is about being strong. It's about building the skills, because you know what they said to me? There's a lot of soldiers that try to be a special operations, and they all look like $1 million, and they can all do 1 million push-ups. But the ones that make it to be special forces are the people with the mental acuity to manage stressful situations. And we should make that something that we, President Kennedy had the presidential physical fitness. We ought to have a similar nationwide goal to prepare all of America to be able to manage their brain health.
I could sit here all day and talk about this. The red light is blinking.
Yeah.
We are out of our time. Patrick, this has been wonderful. Thank
you so much, Kate.
as
Thank you.
always.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.